Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the large window of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly in the black space. The blue and white planet looked peaceful from here, like a marble floating in nothing. He had been watching Earth this way for 20 years, but today felt different. Today, everything might change. Captain Lisa Kane walked up behind him, carrying a data pad in her hands. Her face looked serious, the way it always did when she brought bad news. She stopped next to Morrison and looked out at Earth too. "The reports came in an hour ago," she said quietly. "The Zephyrian scout ships crossed into our solar system yesterday. They think we can't see them, but our hidden sensors picked them up right away." Morrison nodded but kept looking at Earth. Down there, millions of people were going to work, eating breakfast, taking their children to school. They had no idea that alien ships were watching them, planning to take their world away from them. "How many ships?" Morrison asked. 12 scout vessels so far. Our intelligence says the main fleet is still 3 days out. Maybe 4 if we're lucky." Kane handed him the data pad. "They're doing what they always do. Watching, counting our defenses, making sure we're weak enough to conquer easily." Morrison looked at the information on the screen. The Zephyrian Empire had done this same thing to 47 other worlds. It would send scouts first, then a small invasion force. If the planet looked too strong, they would bring more ships. If it looked weak, they would attack with just enough force to win quickly and cheaply. "And what do they see when they look at us?" Morrison asked, even though he already knew the answer. "Exactly what we want them to see," Kane replied. "A few old orbital platforms around Earth, some patrol ships that barely work, a species that just learned how to travel between planets 50 years ago. They think we're helpless." Morrison smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Good. That's exactly what we need them to think." Far below them, hidden under the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Kevin Walsh sat in a room filled with computer screens and blinking lights. The room was part of a huge underground base called Abyssal Command, built so deep under the ocean floor that no one on the surface knew it existed. Walsh looked at the main screen, which showed a map of the solar system. Red dots marked where the Zephyrian ships were moving. Green dots showed where Earth's real defenses waited in secret. There were 8 green dots, and each one represented something the aliens could never imagine. "Status report on the Leviathan," Walsh said to the technician next to him. "All systems are ready, sir. She's been sleeping for 48 years, but everything checks out perfect. When you give the word, she can be fully awake in 30 minutes. Walsh nodded. The U.E.'s Leviathan was humanity's first and largest dreadnought, a warship so big it could hold a small city inside. For almost 50 years, it had been hidden in an underwater cave, waiting for this day. The aliens scanning Earth had no idea it existed. "What about the others?" Walsh asked. "The Titan is ready in the asteroid belt. The Phoenix is ready on Mars. All 8 dreadnoughts are waiting for orders." The technician paused. "Sir, the crews have been training for this their whole lives. They're ready to show the galaxy what humans can really do." Above ground, life continued as normal. In New York City, people walked to work while alien eyes watched them from space. The Zephyrians saw humans using simple cars and trains. They saw buildings made of steel and glass, technology that seemed hundreds of years behind their own. What they didn't see were the hidden sensors built into every major city. They didn't see the underground command centers or the secret factories that had been building weapons for decades. They didn't see the orbital defense platforms that looked old and broken, but were actually the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created. In Washington, President Helen Brooks sat in a meeting with 5 other people. These 6 people were the only civilians on Earth who knew the truth about humanity's real strength. They called themselves the Terran Defense Council, and they had been planning for this day since before Brooks was born. "The Zephyrian scouts will finish their survey in 2 days," said General Robert Hayes. the head of Earth's secret military. After that, their main fleet will arrive and begin the invasion. Are we ready to begin the deception? Brooks looked around the table at the others. These people had spent their entire careers keeping humanity's greatest secret. Our visible defenses are in position. Yes, ma'am. We have 12 old patrol ships and 30 fighters ready to put up a fight and lose quickly. The orbital platforms will fire a few shots and then go dark. To the Zephyrians, it will look like we're trying our best but can't match their technology. Commander Steve Parker was one of the pilots who would fly those doomed fighters. He sat in his cockpit now, running through his checklist one more time. His job was to make Earth look weak, to let the aliens destroy his squadron while making. It looked like humans were fighting with everything they had. It was a hard job, acting weak when you were really strong. But Parker had trained for this his whole life. He knew that when the real fight came, when the Dreadnoughts finally revealed themselves, the aliens would learn what humans could really do. The Zephyrian scout ships continued their slow circles around Earth, counting defenses and making plans. Their sensors saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see: a backward planet with old technology and weak defenses. Easy prey for the empire that had conquered nearly 50 worlds. They had no idea they were about to make the biggest mistake in galactic history. The Zephyrian warfleet appeared at the edge of the solar system like a storm of metal and death. 200 ships of different sizes moved together through space, their dark hulls blocking out the stars behind them. At the center of the fleet was the massive command ship Deathbringer, home to Fleet Commander Vextar. Vextar stood on his bridge, looking at the tactical display that showed Earth and its pathetic defenses. His 4 arms moved across different control panels as he studied the data his scouts had gathered. This would be his 48th conquest, and it looked like it would be one of the easiest. Status report, Vextar commanded in his deep growling voice. The planet has 12 patrol ships and 30 fighter craft, his weapons officer reported. Their orbital platforms are old and weak. Our initial attack will destroy their entire defensive force in less than 10 minutes. Vextar made a sound that was like laughter but crueler. Humans. They barely learned to leave their own planet, and now they think they can stand against the Empire. This will be over before it begins. On Earth, every government leader and military commander watched their screens as the alien fleet approached. But they were not afraid. They were excited. This was the moment they had been waiting for their entire lives. President Brooks sat in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by her closest advisors. The room looked like any normal government meeting, but everyone here knew the truth about humanity's real power. All hidden assets are in position, General Hayes reported. The Dreadnoughts are ready to activate on your command. The surface cities are prepared for the show we need to put on. Brooks nodded. Remember, we need to make this look real. The aliens have to believe they're winning until the moment we reveal the truth. How long do we let them think they've conquered? US, 3 weeks should be enough, Hayes replied. Long enough for them to get comfortable and report back to their empire that Earth is defeated. Then we show them what humans can really do. Commander Steve Parker sat in his fighter, waiting on the launch deck of orbital platform Bravo 7. Around him, 29 other pilots were doing the same thing. They all knew their job was to lose this fight, but they also knew it was the most important fight of their lives. Remember, Parker said over the radio to his squadron, make it look good. Fight hard, but let them win. The aliens need to think they're facing our best effort. The other pilots confirmed they understood. These men and women were some of Earth's finest pilots, but today they would act weak and afraid. It was harder than any real battle they had ever fought. When the Zephyrian fleet reached Earth's orbit, the attack began exactly as planned. The alien ships opened fire on the orbital platforms first, and the platforms fired back with weapons that looked impressive, but were actually very weak. Parker launched his fighter along with the others, flying straight at ships 10 times larger than his small craft. The Zephyrian fighters met them halfway, and the battle began. "This is Red Leader," Parker called over the radio, making his voice sound desperate and scared. "They're too fast. Our weapons can't get through their shields." He was lying, of course. His fighter carried weapons that could have destroyed half the Zephyrian fleet, but they were hidden and powered down. Instead, he fired the weak laser cannons that the aliens expected to see. One by one, Parker watched his squadron get shot down. The pilots ejected safely, just as planned, but to the aliens it looked like Earth's fighters were being destroyed. Easily, Parker waited until he was the last one left, then let an alien fighter damage his ship enough that he had to retreat. The orbital platforms lasted only a few minutes longer. They fired their weak weapons at the alien ships, hitting nothing. Important, until the Zephyrians destroyed them one by one. To anyone watching, it looked like Earth had thrown everything it had at the invaders and failed completely. On the Deathbringer, Vextar watched the destruction with satisfaction, just as our scouts predicted. These humans have nothing that can threaten us. Begin landing operations on their major cities. Dr. Walsh watched the fake battle from Abyssal Command, 3 miles under the Pacific Ocean. Every explosion, every destroyed platform, every lost fighter was part of the plan. The aliens were seeing exactly what humanity wanted them to see. "The performance is perfect," Walsh said to his staff. "They believe we just threw our entire military at them and lost. Now they think Earth is defenseless." Around the world, Zephyrian landing ships began to descend on major cities. The aliens expected to find defeated humans ready to surrender. Instead, they found people who acted scared and helpless, just as they had been trained to do. News reporter Rachel Green stood in front of her camera in New York City as alien ships landed in Central Park behind her. She looked terrified, but her words were carefully planned. "This is Rachel Green reporting what may be humanity's final broadcast," she said, her voice shaking with fake fear. "Our military has been destroyed. The aliens are landing in every major city. We have no way to fight back." Every word was a lie, but the Zephyrians monitoring human broadcasts believed every bit of it. They saw a broken species that had used up all their strength in a few hopeless minutes of battle. Commander Vextar received reports from his ground forces as they took control of Earth's cities. The humans were surrendering everywhere, just as expected. Their leaders were asking for mercy, begging to be allowed to live as slaves rather than be destroyed. "Excellent," Vextar said to his officers. "Send a message to the Empire. Tell them Earth has fallen in record time. Another world has joined our empire, and their resources are now ours to take." But deep under the ocean, Admiral Morrison was getting ready to give the order that would change everything. The UE's Leviathan had been sleeping for 48 years, hidden in a cave so deep that no alien sensor could find it. Soon, it would wake up, and the Zephyrians would learn that they had made a terrible mistake. "How long do we wait?" Captain Kane asked. Morrison looked at the reports coming in from around the world. The aliens were getting comfortable, believing they had won easily. That was exactly what humanity needed. 3 weeks, Morrison said. "Let them think they've conquered us. Let them report their victory to their empire. Then we show them what humans are really capable of when we stop pretending to be weak." 3 weeks had passed since the Zephyrian fleet conquered Earth. Commander Vextar stood on his bridge, looking down at the blue planet with satisfaction. His forces controlled every major city, and the humans were behaving exactly as expected. From a defeated species. "Status report on mining operations," Vextar ordered. "The moon mining is ahead of schedule," his operations officer replied. "The humans had some basic equipment there, but nothing that could stop us. We should have enough rare metals extracted in 2 months to fuel the next 3 conquests." Vextar nodded. This had been one of his easiest victories. The humans had put up a brief fight with their primitive weapons, then surrendered completely when they realized they were outmatched. Now they worked in their own factories and mines, producing resources for the Zephyrian Empire. On Earth's surface, Dr. Amanda Foster walked through the halls of what used to be the MIT Research Center. Zephyrian guards watched her, but they saw only a frightened human scientist forced to work for her new alien masters. They had no idea she was actually Colonel Amanda Foster, one of Earth's top intelligence officers. "The fusion reactor designs you requested," Foster said to the Zephyrian science officer, handing him a data pad. The alien took it with one of his 4 hands and looked at the information. "This is very primitive," the alien said with disgust. "Your species barely understands basic energy production. No wonder you were so easy to defeat." Foster kept her face calm and submissive, but inside she was smiling. The fusion reactor plans she had given him were fake, designed to make human. Technology looked centuries behind Zephyrian science. The real human fusion technology was actually more advanced than what the aliens used, but they would never suspect that. "We are trying our best to learn from your superior knowledge," Foster said in a small, defeated voice. "Perhaps you could teach us how to improve our primitive systems." The alien made a sound of amusement. "Your species will need hundreds of years to understand what we know. For now, just do as you are told and be grateful we allow you to live." 3 miles under the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Morrison stood in the control room of Abyssal Command. Around him, hundreds of technicians worked at their stations, monitoring every alien ship in the solar system. The Zephyrians had no idea they were being watched by sensors far more advanced than their own. "All Dreadnoughts report ready status," Captain Kane announced. "The Leviathan has been fully powered up for 6 hours. All systems show green. Captain Brooks is waiting for the attack order." Morrison looked at the main display screen. It showed the positions of every Zephyrian ship, updated in real time by Earth's hidden sensor network. The aliens had spread out their fleet, confident that no threat could possibly come from the defeated planet below them. "What about our intelligence gathering?" Morrison asked. "Dr. Foster has sent us complete technical specifications on their shields, weapons, and ship designs," Kane replied. "The aliens think she's just a scared scientist, so they've been showing off their technology to impress her. We now know exactly how to defeat every ship in their fleet." Morrison nodded. The 3 weeks of waiting had been worth it. Not only had the aliens become careless and overconfident, but humanity had learned everything they needed to know about Zephyrian military technology. "Send the activation signal to all Dreadnoughts," Morrison ordered. "It's time to wake up." Deep in an underwater cavern that had been hidden for almost 50 years, the UE's Leviathan began to stir. Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the ship's bridge as massive systems came online all around him. The Dreadnought was over 10 kilometers long, larger than most cities, and packed with weapons that represented the best of human engineering. "All departments report ready," his executive officer announced. "Reactor at full power. Weapons charged. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch. We are ready to surface." Brooks looked at his crew. These men and women had trained their entire careers for this moment. Some of them had been born inside this very ship, the children of the original crew members who had been assigned to the Leviathan decades ago. "Today, we stop pretending to be weak," Brooks announced to his crew over the ship's communication system. "Today, we show the galaxy what humans can do when we fight for real. All hands prepare for surface operations." On the surface, the day seemed normal. People went to work under alien supervision, and Zephyrian ships moved lazily through Earth's sky. But deep under the ocean, something massive was rising. The first sign was a change in the ocean current near the Hawaiian Islands. Then, seabirds began flying away from a particular area of water as if they sensed something huge moving far below. Finally, the water itself began to bubble and foam. Commander Vextar was reviewing mining reports when his sensors officer suddenly stood up from his station. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy readings from the planet's ocean," the officer said, his voice filled with confusion. "The signature is enormous, but it doesn't match any known human technology." Vextar moved to the sensor station and looked at the display. The energy reading was indeed massive, far larger than anything in the human database his scouts had compiled. "It must be some kind of natural phenomenon," Vextar said. "Perhaps an underwater volcano or seismic activity." But then the ocean exploded. The U.S. Leviathan broke the surface of the Pacific like a metal mountain rising from the depths. Water cascaded off its massive hull as the dreadnought climbed higher and higher into the sky. Its surface bristled with weapon systems and armor plating that gleamed in the sunlight. Every human on Earth stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. Many of them had never seen one of the dreadnoughts before, but they all knew what it meant. The masquerade was over. Earth was about to fight back. On Zephyrian ships around the planet, alarm signals began blaring. The aliens stared at their sensors in disbelief as the massive human warship continued to rise from the ocean. "That's impossible," Vextar whispered. "Our intelligence said they had no ships larger than a patrol craft. Nothing like this exists in their technology base." His weapons officer was frantically scanning the Leviathan with every sensor they had. "Sir, the energy output from that ship is beyond our measurement scales. Its weapon systems are enormous. This doesn't match any human technology we've seen." Vextar felt a cold fear growing in his chest. "Send a message to all ships. Target that vessel and destroy it immediately." But Captain Brooks was not planning to give the aliens time to organize their attack. The Leviathan's main cannon, a weapon that used controlled fusion reactions to create a beam of pure destruction, swiveled toward the Zephyrian command ship. "Fire," Brooks ordered. The beam that erupted from the Leviathan's main gun was visible from orbit. It cut through space like a sword of light, crossing the distance between the ocean and the command ship in less than a second. When it struck the Deathbringer, the massive alien vessel simply disappeared in a flash of vaporized metal. Commander Vextar had just enough time to realize that everything he thought he knew about humans was wrong before his ship was reduced to atoms. Across the solar system, hidden in asteroid fields and on distant planets, 7 more dreadnoughts began powering up their systems. The age of human deception was ending, and the real war was about to begin. The destruction of the Zephyrian command ship sent shockwaves through the entire alien fleet. On every Zephyrian vessel, crew members stared at their screens in disbelief as they watched the massive human warship floating in Earth's ocean like a metal island. Captain Zeekmer, now the highest-ranking Zephyrian officer alive, took command of the scattered fleet from his heavy cruiser. His voice shook as he spoke to his communications officer. "Send an emergency message to the Empire. Tell them we need immediate reinforcements. The humans have hidden weapons we never detected." But before the message could be sent, more human ships began appearing across the solar system. Near the asteroid belt, what had looked like a large mining station suddenly began to move. The U.S. Titan shook off decades of disguise as pieces of fake rock and metal fell away from its hull. The massive dreadnought turned toward the nearest group of Zephyrian ships, its weapon systems charging with deadly light. Captain Lisa Mitchell stood on the Titan's bridge, watching her crew prepare for battle. These men and women had lived their entire lives pretending to be asteroid miners, maintaining the fiction that humans were only interested in peaceful resource gathering. "Target the enemy cruiser squadron," Mitchell ordered. "Show them what our mining lasers can really do." The Titan's main weapons were not mining lasers at all, but particle beam cannons powerful enough to cut through the strongest alien armor. When they fired, 3 Zephyrian cruisers were destroyed in the first volley. On Mars, The red planet's surface cracked open as the UE's Phoenix rose from a canyon that had hidden it for 40 years. The ship's commander, Captain Robert Kim, had grown up on Mars, the son of the original crew. He knew every inch of the red planet, and he had been waiting his whole life for this moment. "Launch all fighters," Kim commanded. "Let's show these aliens what human pilots can really do when they stop pretending to be afraid." The Phoenix carried 200 fighter craft, each one equipped with weapons and technology that made the primitive fighters from 3 weeks ago look like toys. The pilots who flew them were not the same ones who had lost the fake battle. These were Earth's real military pilots, and they had been training in secret for decades. Major Daniel Clark led the first fighter squadron away from the Phoenix. His ship moved through space faster than any Zephyrian fighter. Its engines powered by fusion technology the aliens thought humans didn't possess. "Remember," Clark said to his pilots over the radio, "we don't need to pretend anymore. Fight like the warriors you really are." Near Jupiter's moons, the U-East Tempest uncloaked from its hiding place among the gas giants' rings. For 50 years, it had looked like just another piece of space debris, but now it revealed itself as one of humanity's most advanced warships. The Zephyrian ships near Jupiter tried to run when they saw the Tempest, but human technology was faster than they expected. The Dreadnoughts' weapons reached out across millions of kilometers, turning fleeing alien ships into expanding clouds of gas and metal. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the UE Sovereign, humanity's flagship. The massive ship had been hidden inside Luna Station itself, disguised as the station's central structure. Now it flew free, its weapons trained on the remaining Zephyrian forces. "Status report," Morrison ordered. 7 Dreadnoughts are now active and engaging the enemy, Captain Kane reported. "The Zephyrian fleet is in complete disarray. They're trying to regroup, but our ships are faster and more maneuverable than their intelligence said was possible." Morrison nodded. The aliens had based their invasion plan on completely false information about human capabilities. Now they were paying the price for their mistake. On Earth's surface, the Zephyrian ground forces were panicking. They had thought they were occupying a defeated world, but now massive human warships were fighting in the sky above them. The primitive humans they had been guarding suddenly didn't look so helpless anymore. Dr. Foster threw off her disguise and revealed the military uniform she had been wearing underneath her scientist's clothes. The Zephyrian officer who had been ordering her around stared in shock. "You're not a researcher," he said in disbelief. "Colonel Amanda Foster, Earth Intelligence Corps," she replied, pulling out a weapon that the alien had never seen before. "And you're under arrest for invasion of a sovereign world." The weapon she carried was a plasma rifle, using technology that was supposed to be beyond human understanding. When she fired it, the Zephyrian officer's energy shield collapsed instantly, and he fell to the ground unconscious. All around the world, humans were throwing off their disguises and revealing who they really were. The defeated factory workers were actually soldiers. The scared civilians were intelligence agents. The primitive local governments were military command centers. Captain Zeekmer tried desperately to coordinate his fleet's response, but the human ships were everywhere. Every time his forces tried to group together for a counterattack, another dreadnought would appear from a hiding place his scouts had never detected. "How many ships do they have?" Zeekmer demanded of his sensor officer. 8 confirmed dreadnoughts, sir, plus hundreds of smaller warships that weren't there during our initial invasion. It's like they built an entire fleet in 3 weeks. "That's impossible," Zeekmer said. "No species can build ships that fast." His sensor officer looked up from his station with fear in his eyes. "Sir, I don't think they built these ships in 3 weeks. I think these ships have been here all along, and we never saw them." The terrible truth was beginning to dawn on the surviving Zephyrians. They had not conquered a primitive world. They had walked into a trap that had been 50 years in the making. The UE's Leviathan moved through space toward the largest group of remaining Zephyrian ships. Captain Brooks knew that many of the aliens were trying to escape, to run back to their empire, and warned them about humanity's real strength. "We can't let any of them get away," Brooks said to his weapons officer. "The Empire needs to think this." Entire fleet was destroyed by primitive human weapons, not by ships they never suspected existed. The final battle of the solar system took place near Saturn's rings. The surviving Zephyrian ships, about 60 vessels in total, tried to make a coordinated jump to faster-than-light speed. But they had underestimated human technology one last time. The 8 human dreadnoughts surrounded the alien fleet and fired at the same time. The combined energy of their weapons lit up the space around Saturn like a small sun. When the light faded, nothing remained of the Zephyrian invasion force except glowing particles drifting among the ice rings. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the tactical display that showed an empty solar system except for human ships. The masquerade was over. After 50 years of pretending to be weak, humanity had revealed its true strength to the galaxy. "Send a message to Earth," Morrison ordered. "Tell them the solar system is secure. Tell them it's time to let the galaxy know that humans are not the primitive species they thought we were." Admiral Morrison stood in the command center of the UES Sovereign, looking at reports from across the solar system. Every Zephyrian ship had been destroyed. Not a single alien vessel had escaped to warn their empire about humanity's real strength. The solar system belonged to Earth once again. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the outer edge of the system," Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner reported from his communication station. "It's a Zephyrian reinforcement fleet. They're calling for Fleet Commander Vextar." Morrison smiled grimly. "Let me speak to them." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a Zephyrian battleship. An alien officer with silver markings on his uniform looked out at Morrison with 4 curious eyes. "I am Sub-Commander Telvac of the Zephyrian Empire. I am trying to reach Fleet Commander Vextar regarding the conquest of Earth. Who are you?" "Human. I am Admiral Jake Morrison of the Terran Defense Fleet," Morrison replied calmly. "Fleet Commander Vextar is dead. His entire invasion force has been destroyed. I suggest you turn your ships around and leave our solar system immediately." The alien's eyes widened in shock. "That's impossible. Our intelligence reports showed that your species has no significant military capability. Vextar had 200 ships." "Your intelligence was wrong," Morrison said. "Would you like to see what happened to those 200 ships?" Morrison nodded. To Turner, who sent visual records of the battle to the alien fleet. The sub-commander watched in growing horror as the footage showed human dreadnoughts emerging from hiding places and destroying Zephyrian vessels with weapons that shouldn't exist. "This is some kind of trick," Telvac said, but his voice shook with uncertainty. "Humans don't have technology like this." "We've had this technology for 50 years, Morrison replied. "We simply chose not to show it to the galaxy. We wanted to see who our friends were and who our enemies were. The Zephyrian Empire chose to be our enemy." Telvac's 4 arms moved nervously over his control panels. His reinforcement fleet had 60 ships, but after seeing what human weapons could do, he wasn't sure that would be enough. "I must report this to the Empire," Telvac said. "We will return with a larger fleet." "You can try," Morrison said. "But before you go, I have a message for your empire." Morrison's image disappeared from Telvac's screen, replaced by President Helen Brooks standing in the Oval Office. Behind her, through the window, one of the massive dreadnoughts could be seen hovering over Washington, D.C. "People of the galaxy," Brooks began, "for 50 years, humanity has watched as the Zephyrian Empire conquered world after world. We saw peaceful species enslaved and their resources stolen. We could have intervened at any time, but we chose to wait and learn. The image changed to show footage of the 8 human dreadnoughts in formation around Earth, their massive hulls gleaming in the sunlight. We allowed the galaxy to think we were weak and primitive while we built the most advanced military force in known space. We watched, we learned, we prepared. And when the Zephyrian Empire finally came for us, we were ready. The footage switched to recordings of the battle, showing Zephyrian ships being destroyed by human weapons. The Zephyrian invasion force has been completely eliminated. Not a single ship escaped. This is the fate that awaits any species that threatens Earth or our allies. We do not seek conquest, but we will defend ourselves and others against those who would take freedom away. Brooks looked directly into the camera, her voice strong and clear. To the peaceful species of the galaxy, Earth offers friendship and protection. To those who choose conquest and slavery, we offer only this warning: find another target. Earth is not defenseless, and we are not alone. The transmission ended, leaving Telvac staring at a blank screen. He turned to his navigation officer with a voice full of fear. Set course for the Empire's capital, maximum speed. The High Command needs to know about this immediately. As the Zephyrian reinforcement fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed and fled the solar system, Admiral Morrison returned to Earth. The 8 dreadnoughts took up defensive positions around the planet, no longer hidden but standing guard for all to see. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to change. The transmission, showing humanity's true military power, spread from system to system. Species that had been conquered by the Zephyrian Empire started to rebel, knowing that Earth would support them if they fought for their freedom. Dr. Walsh emerged from Abyssal Command and stood on the surface of Earth for the first time in 20 years. He looked up at the Ueza Leviathan floating in the sky above the Pacific Ocean, no longer hidden in its underwater cave. 50 years of secrecy, he said to Captain Kane, who stood beside him. 50 years of pretending to be something we weren't. Was it worth it? Kane looked around at the peaceful scene. Children were playing in a nearby park, completely safe, because the most powerful warships in the galaxy were protecting them. Yes, she said. It was worth it. On the edge of Zephyrian space, the Empire's High Command received Sub-Commander Telvac's report with disbelief and growing fear. The species they had planned to conquer next was not the primitive civilization their scouts had described. Earth was protected by weapons beyond their understanding and warriors who had been planning for this war for half a century. Emperor Zexthu, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, called an emergency meeting of his war council. For the first time in the Empire's history, they had encountered a species that was stronger than they were. What do we do? The Emperor asked his advisors. We could try to negotiate, suggested one general, with the species that just destroyed our entire invasion fleet, replied another. They will never trust us after what we've done to other worlds. Emperor Zexthul looked at the tactical reports showing human ship capabilities. The dreadnoughts were larger and more powerful than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Worse, the humans had hidden their true strength for decades, which meant they were far more clever than the Empire had ever suspected. Send word to all our fleets, the Emperor ordered. Earth and its solar system are to be avoided at all costs. Mark it as a restricted zone. Any ship that approaches human space without permission will be considered lost. Back on Earth, President Brooks stood on the balcony of the White House, looking up at the stars. The Zephyrian threat was over, but she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy now knew that humanity was not weak, and that would bring both new friends and new enemies. Admiral Morrison joined her on the balcony, still wearing his military uniform. The masquerade is over, he said. No more hiding, no more pretending to be weak. Brooks nodded. The galaxy is going to be a very different place now. Some species will want to be our allies. Others will see us as a threat that needs to be eliminated. Let them come, Morrison replied. looking up at the dreadnoughts that now openly guarded Earth. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years. Humanity is ready to take its place among the stars. High above them, the 8 dreadnoughts continued their silent watch, no longer hidden guardians, but open protectors of a world that had finally revealed its true strength to the galaxy.